And we're back. So the last time we got together, we were talking about classroom management, and we still are today. Today's topic is rules. All right, let me put this into perspective. So, where we left off, we were talking about procedures. So procedures are really kind of like your daily routines. How do you get things done? How do you collect your students' homework? How do you take attendance? Rules are much different. Rules are statements regarding what is acceptable and what is unacceptable in the classroom and how students must behave in order for learning to occur. And also, when rules are broken, there are consequences. Okay, so whenever you're trying to determine what your rules should be, there are certain things that your students just simply cannot violate. One of those things is health and safety. Health and safety of others, health and safety of themselves even, okay? Can you think of an example of a health or safety issue? So I'm sure that issues regarding the spreading of germs or viruses such as COVID come to mind, whether we're talking about hand sanitizers or face masks or social distancing. So there we have health. When it comes to safety, there are a variety of issues, whether we're talking about bullying and fights, or whether we're talking about something as simple as a student standing on their desk. That is a safety issue because they could fall and get hurt. Or students climbing bookshelves where they could get seriously injured. All right, then we have property damage or loss. Again, that is something else that students simply cannot violate. So whether we're talking about theft, whether we're talking about vulgar vandalism, whether we're talking about property damage of the school, of the teacher, or of other students. One way you can see this is, for instance, I've seen pictures where teachers have bought decorations or bookshelves or things for their classrooms and they might get destroyed by students or stealing another student's work. And then learning. That, the purpose of being in schools is learning, and that is something that students cannot detract from or infringe upon other people's learning. Okay, so here's an example of class rules. I found this just simply doing some, image searches online, and this is one that comes up a good bit when it comes to examples of class rules. All right. While looking at those class rules, can you find a rule, and it could be more than one, that promotes safety? Do you see ones about safety? How about those? I think those obviously, whether it's keeping your hands, feet, and objects to yourself, work and play in a safe manner. Perfect. All right, what about property protection? Do you see that? I think number 5 fits best. Show respect for school and personal property. And then finally, what about learning? The other 3 all have to do with learning. Listen while others are talking, follow directions, and work quietly. So I thought it was great that here we have these 3 things that we know rules are supposed to cover, and then just this common photo that again comes up on class rules is a perfect match. All right, so let's talk about how you go about creating your rules. Now over here on the side, I have an old Far Side comic. It says, Mrs. Muntner liked to go over a few of her rules on the first day of class. What do you see wrong with her list of rules? There's a lot of things wrong with it. The first thing I notice is they all start with the word no. No, 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 no. There's a whole bunch of them. I mean, there's no way I would remember any of those. And don't they seem kind of dumb? Like they cover things that aren't that important, like no making stupid faces, no goofy hairstyles. Let's see how this cartoon might relate to what we're talking about when it comes to creating class rules. So first of all, avoid the use of negatives. And what did her rules start with? Every single one started with no. So try to tell students what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do. There are so many reasons for this. One is that human beings can sometimes be oppositional defiant. And when we hear the word no, 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 we don't like that. Also, if you're only focusing on what they should not do, it's a rather negative way of phrasing things, and it also is putting words out there that perhaps you don't want them to have, like no bullying, no hitting, no yelling. Little kids tend to ignore the no when they hear bullying, hitting, yelling, so instead tell them what you do want them to do. Your rules should be general, not overly specific. Mrs. Muntner rules, the cartoon, extremely specific. So here's some examples. So here's the idea of specific rules. Do not chew gum. Do not eat candy. Be nice. Be a good friend. Be a great friend. Okay, very specific. These ones here, much more general. So the idea of keeping hands, feet, and objects to yourself covers a variety of things. Working quietly, showing respect, and so on. They should be few in number. Think about short-term memory limits. We said 7 items plus or minus 2. So with young children, you should have a few. Okay, I love this here. The 3 Bs, 3 rules that cover just about everything. Be ready, be respectful, be responsible. And then you would talk about what that means and how it can apply to all of those big issues that we've talked about. So when it comes to elementary students really need you to focus on things like social skills, what you expect of them in terms of their behavior in the classroom to make sure that students can learn, and their rules need to be very concrete and tangible, easily understood. Here are some examples when it comes to elementary, and you can see that usually they're phrased short. Listening bodies. And then you would explain to them, what do I mean by listening bodies? And then you could use that as one of your attention prompts. I need everyone to have their listening bodies out. Raised hands, quiet mouths, walking feet, helping hands, and caring hearts. Okay, so cute, easy to remember, short and sweet. Your middle and high school students, they really want to know why. Okay, they need to understand the rationale for your rules. So you're going to need to spend a bit more time talking with them about why they shouldn't have their cell phones out. Why is that a disturbance to their learning for them to truly get it? They also want to have some input. They like to have some say in things. And that's actually not a bad thing, because by doing that, you make them more personally invested in the rules, more intrinsically motivated. Remember what we talked about with the need for control, the self-determination factor. And you might need to relate to the idea that, well, teens do have this increasing need for social connection and for acceptance from others, and you might need to keep that in mind somehow when you're writing your rules. All right, when it comes to implementing your class rules, first of all, and I can't say this enough, set them early. I recommend doing it day 1. If for some reason you don't do it day 1, you must do it by day 2, because your rules set the tone for the whole class. Otherwise, students don't know what they can and can't do. You should consider getting student input. Now, even though I said it's the middle school and the high school students that really want it, all students can benefit from it. So how do you get students' input now that we're talking about it? You could just simply have a discussion with them, like, why do we need rules? You know, why are rules beneficial to us? Why are rules going to help our class? So we're going to watch a short video of a teacher doing this with an elementary class and making this work.
Preparing, teaching, and monitoring classroom rules are important for creating an orderly learning environment. Let's see how a second-grade teacher attempts to accomplish these tasks.
Boys and girls, I called you to the circle this morning for some very important business. Because since today's the very first day of school, and since we have to get used to each other and living together in this room together, we need to do something that's very important for us to have a good year. And the thing we need to do is to make some rules for our classroom, not for the school. We know the school rules. But we need some for our classroom. Who can tell me why you think rules might be important to make? Rachel? To keep you safe. I think that's a good reason to make some rules. Okay? I think, if we were fighting, wouldn't it be a long day every day if we came in and fought every day? That's a very good one. Why else, Tedra? That's exactly right. I like these. You guys are thinking, you have your thinking caps on, and I like that.
So you can see, again, at any age you can get input, and it can be helpful, even just simply asking, why do we need rules? You could also put them in groups or individually, have them create their own set of rules, compare what they have created to your set of rules, and discuss the differences. Sometimes you will find that the rules that they create on their own are very similar to yours. You could also consider, once the rules are set, having some sort of an agreement form that they have to sign, that they have read and they understood the rules. Surprisingly, this can go a long way when it comes to helping with prevention of misbehaviors. All right, so why do you think it's helpful to get student input? I mean, I've mentioned it, but what are your thoughts? Again, if you're thinking about things like intrinsic motivation and buy-in and the fact that people are more likely to follow rules that they have a say in, I think you're on the right track. All right, so yes, it increases buy-in to your rules. Students will be more likely to follow them, and they're also, what happens is almost magical, they're more likely to also help you enforce them, because if they feel like they helped to create them or had some input in them, they're more likely to start to regulate one another as well. And again, as I mentioned, it does increase their intrinsic motivation, which is a great thing on so many different levels, as well as they feel respected because they were part of the process and they feel like you really care about their opinion. All right, so we were talking about implementing class rules. So I said set them early, get input. Number 3 is post them, teach them, discuss them, review them. It should not be something that you just simply mention on day 1 and that's it. Don't assume that they are going to remember them. Make a poster of them, put it at the front of your classroom, and then every day at least once they're all probably going to look at it and read it. You can then also refer to that poster when you need to. For instance, let's see. I'm going to show you some class rules I have in my room right now. So I'm in my homeschool class right now, and you'll see this is one of the set of rules I have posted. In our class, we are a team, we are positive, we respect each other, we try our best, we make good choices, we're kind, we're honest, we listen to each other, and we work hard. So a slightly different set of rules than you might have in a traditional classroom, but it works for us here in homeschool. Okay, we have been joined by Lily. She's decided that she wants to be part of what we're doing here. So we were talking about posting rules and teaching rules. You need to do this differently depending upon the age of your students. So with younger students, you might need to demonstrate. So what do you mean by raising your hand and waiting to be called on? You might need to really give a bit more hands-on, tangible kinds of explanations as to what it is that you're looking for. For older students, they're more cognitive, so you can discuss and just simply talk with them about it. And then lastly, you need to discuss the consequences. What happens if they break those rules? And there needs to be consequences, and we'll talk in our next segment about handling misbehaviors and what do you do when you have to deliver a consequence. All right, so final message. If you want a well-behaved class, and again, we're going to be getting to misbehaviors very soon, this is what researchers have found. So they observed classes at the beginning of the school year, the middle of the school year, and the end of the school year, and compared them to see, okay, the teachers who had well-behaved classes, what did they do differently? What was the magical trick? So they compared teachers who had students that were on task and well-behaved, and those who did not. What was the big difference? What was the secret? The key was, number 1, having a plan for procedures and rules. So teachers that had well-behaved classes had classroom management plans. What else did they do? They spent extra time during that first week, and some even went beyond the first week, really going over and teaching and explaining what those procedures and rules were, because remember we talked about that with procedures, you have to teach these things. They taught those procedures and rules until the students got it. So they didn't just mention it as an afterthought and assume that the students got it. They responded immediately to misbehaviors. So they didn't let things slide. They responded immediately and took care of misbehaviors. And that's it. Let me go back one. So again, these 4 things were the key to having a well-behaved class. So that is it on setting rules. The next time, our last topic on classroom management is going to be handling misbehaviors. So I'll see you then. Oh, and Lily has been sitting here biting me the entire time, despite the fact that she does actually love me. She just wants my attention. So I'm going to go hang out with my cats, and I'll see you guys next time.